I'm dropping the plan, I'm dropping the plot, I'm dropping the twist me up in knots. I'm dropping the past, prevailing over what's in store. I'm dropping the scarcity of enough. I'm dropping that constellated stuff. I'm dropping the points, I'm dropping the game, I'm dropping the score. And I'm bringing in the light. Been in the darkness for too long. I'm bringing in the light. Bringing in the light by the way of a song. It's the love I give turns to happiness. Bringing in the joy, bringing in the light, bringing in the bliss. Everything's gonna be fine as I let my heart lights shine. Bringing in the light. Been in the darkness for too long. I'm bringing in the light. Bringing in the light by the way of a song. It's the love I give turns to happiness. Bringing in the joy, bringing in the light, bringing in the bliss. Bringing in the joy, bringing in the light, bringing in the bliss. Bringing in the joy, bringing in the light, bringing in the bliss. Bringing in the light.
It's true that Leslie is one of those rare gifts to us. So thank you, Leslie. So this preacher was assisting and ushering one of his flock into the long, dark night and whispered in his ear very strongly, "Denounce the devil and tell him you have little to do with his evil ways." The guy didn't say anything, so he repeated himself, "Denounce the devil. Tell him you have nothing to do with his evil ways." And still the guy said nothing. So the pastor asked him, "Why is it that you won't denounce the devil and his evil ways?" He says, "Well, until I figure out where I'm going, I don't think I want to aggravate anybody." And some people have that story about life and about God or whatever it is that we have made up about life. And I want you to know a basic principle. It's all God, meaning all the infinite, everything. We make up the rest. We're the ones who make up the stories about everything. Someone asked me this morning, do you have a good definition of God? Or a useful definition of God? And I said, whatever you make up. For me, it's the all. But think about it for yourself, because whatever that is for you, that's what's going to determine how you experience that. This whole month is focusing on prosperity. And prosperity is not just cash. It's not just money. It's health and opportunity and possibility and all of the good that one could possibly imagine in life. Life is filled with possibility, and plenty is available for anyone who chooses it and lets it in. See, you could act like you choose it, do your affirmations, all that kind of stuff, but there's no walk associated with and congruent with the affirmation. Subsequently, you're not really letting it in. Dr. Holmes, from the 1926 edition of The Science of Mind, limitation and poverty are not things, but are the results of restricted ways of thinking. I shared this last week. And today, the running story is not about marathoning. Today, the running story is about that story that runs in your head all the time, that you've been telling forever and living in accordance with. So what story have you been telling about wealth and your experience of wealth up until now? Wealth also, like prosperity, is not just money. We tend to use the word that way, but there are a wealth of ideas, a wealth of opportunities, etc., etc. So separation, doubt, health, wealth, and opportunity are not things of themselves, but are the results of the stories we have continued to tell about ourselves and life. Raymond Hollywell, from Working with the Law. As you train yourself to mentally look for the good, you will move towards the good, and as you form higher and larger conceptions of the good, these elements will begin to find expression in your words, acts, character, person, talents, powers, attainments, and achievements. That is, all things in your life will commence to improve as the direct result of your improved thinking. So, there's a catch. And the catch is we don't look for that which we think is not there. Hang with that for a moment. We do not look for that which we don't think is there. If you supposedly lost something, are you going to look for it because you think it's there? Have you completely given it up? Without opportunity in your minds as a possibility, will you look for opportunity? If love is not possible for you, will you look for love? We tend not to look for that which we think is not there. We tend to look for that which we expect to find. We tend to find that which we expect to find. So all of those are the catch. Really, think about this. We don't look for that which we think is not there. We tend to look for that which we expect to find, and we tend to find that which we expect to find. It's kind of a closed loop. And that closed loop lives within our expectancy, within our points of view, within our perspective about life and us and other people and life itself and our relationship with all of that. So many of you are familiar with the Horatio Alger myth. Most of you may not know about it as the myth, but Horatio Alger was a real live guy. He was born in 1867, and from the time he was born until just before his death, he produced over 120 major works in that 30-year period. That's 4 books a year. We bow and scrape and prostrate ourselves before the king of authorship. So the Horatio Alger myth is really that myth that it's truly American, if you think about it. It's truly American. How many of you have, I mentioned this, I think it was last week, how many of you have ever read European versions of the fairy tales? If you have not read them, you've got to read them. They're dark, beasts really exist, and good people die. Really uplifting. But that's not why they were written. American fairy tales are very different. So the European fairy tales are very dark. American fairy tales, happily ever after. That's why Disney glommed onto that so big. It's truly an American tenet to look for hope. We left Europe years ago. We left Europe looking for opportunity. We knew opportunity was there, so we went looking for it. We knew freedom of expression was there, so we went looking for it. Freedom from religious suppression, we went looking for it, etc., etc. It literally is part of the American ethos. And that through hard work and moral and ethical fortitude, one can ascend from humble beginnings to the ranks of the pampered privileged. Oh my gosh. So Horatio Alger started writing these stories in the late 1800s, and until just before his death in 99, he wrote all these works, and they mirrored the American dream. that the promise of reward was there for anybody who expressed dedication and persistency. Good, hard, Calvinistic work. So there. Anybody not have that story in your head? I can remember as a kid, just starting into Boy Scouts, had Highlights magazine, and I would look at that, and there were examples after examples after examples of the Alger myth just embedded in there, that if you work this and if you pick up this enterprise, because all of his heroes were all hymns. 2, they were all white. 3, they were all born into humble beginnings, and they worked their tails off. But every single one of the stories, you hear this, it's really important to hear this. Every one of those stories, there was a little bit of luck at one point that they grabbed onto and invested in, and then thereafter built their fortunes, built their name. It wasn't just hard work and persistence. They had a moment of real live luck. So many of you know about the fact that when I was in ministerial school, I decided to treat for luck, because I don't believe in luck. I think luck is nothing more than being at the right place, the right time, with the right circumstances, right willingness, right resources, and the right attitude. That's it. That's what luck is. It's self-determined. Luck favors the bold. You've probably heard that. Luck favors the prepared. You may have heard that. So that's what these moments were. These people believed that they could make it. Now, where the heck did they get that? It's a fairly common myth in our culture. And yet the opposite is also a common myth in our culture. Which one's true? I've heard somewhere that New Thought teaches it is done unto us as we believe. Maybe there's something to both of them. What story do you buy into and continue to tell again and again and again and again? And interestingly enough, just probably coincidentally enough, you experience life that way. Maybe you had one moment where that was the story that made sense to you, and you grabbed onto it and started living according to it for the rest of your days. It's not unusual. We tend to find that which we expect to find. That is the bottom line of total convincement, what some people call faith. Faith that it won't work is faith nonetheless. The stories we continue to tell tend to become the lives we live. The question is whether or not you choose to change your story. Now, we're doing this series, The Trance of Scarcity, which is about awakening to the fact that scarcity is nothing more than a story. Abundance is only a story. The stories we edit, rewrite, and continue to tell tend to become the lives we live. This week, we're looking at upgrading our stories. So no matter what the story has been up until now, have you ever heard that books actually go in for republication? So do lives. It's all story, wrote Victoria Castle in this book. Abundance is a story, scarcity is a story. Yes, there are facts supporting both of them, but it isn't the facts that shape our lives, it's our stories. Have you ever thought that circumstances shaped your life? Just go like this. Of course, we all have bought into that. And we have forgotten in those circumstances sometimes that it's our power innate to us that gives us the ability, the intelligence innate with us that gives us the ability to start telling a different story and to step out of that previous story. They're all stories. So today is about waking up to the fact that you have stories, period, end of story. Nobody doesn't have a story. We're natural storytellers. What story are you telling? Belief in lack is the one and only thing that causes lack. We talked about this last week. And in proportion as we lay that belief aside, our boundaries can expand. However, they won't until you decide to tell a different story and act accordingly. Again and again and again, if you've been around more than a half a dozen times, you've probably heard something similar to, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You don't have to effort at it. All you do is change your mind and start behaving accordingly. Now, how hard is that for you to change your mind? If you don't know there's an alternative, there's no point in trying to change your mind because you don't think it's possible. You can't find that which you don't think exists. Any story can be written, and there are a few that could use rewriting. I want you to think, though, for today, just today, pick one story that you don't like the outcome of the story. It's not a happily ever after story. How would you change it so that you end up with your version of happily ever after? My version of happily ever after is everybody lives in choice and takes responsibility and accountability for their lives. I mean, people, the message of New Thought is wholeness. And there are two tools that can guarantee it: accountability and responsibility. We're accountable for everything in our experience. We're responsible for every experience we have. And subsequently, we can change our minds, behave differently, think differently, behave differently. Whichever order you think you need to do it in, it's according to your belief. That's what's going to work best for you. Any story can be rewritten. Any. And I'm sure there are some great stories out there. And some awful stories out there. But they can be rewritten. Nothing is cast forever except that you live in choice and you choose the life you want to live. So choose the one you want to live and live according to that. Bless you. Let's pray together. And I start noticing the breath. How naturally it comes into the body and exhales from the body. And just like that natural circulation, that natural flow of life itself, I use it as a constant reminder of the life which I know as infinite in every regard. Infinite power, infinite intelligence, that which I call God itself. That it operates in me and as me. It operates in everyone, in and as everyone. And it also works both in the individual as well as the collective. It operates in the center as equally well. So right now I speak for everyone who comes forward and know that these desires await the claiming, and that the words spoken for them facilitate that experience. So as these individual prayers continue, I speak my word for this beloved community and for all. And know that the abundance of life awaits its recognition. And for each, an ease in that claiming becomes more obvious, more evident every single moment. So whether that abundance has to do with money or vitality or health and wholeness or well-being or ease or love, opportunity, I know that abundance exists already. And that each person certainly moves more honestly, more genuinely into that experience. And as I observe it, as I experience it, joy builds inside. That sense of it's complete as it is. Nothing could possibly be missing. So I call that experience, that feeling, gratitude. And since the gratitude fills me and the smile forms on my face, I know it as done. And together we affirm this one reality and to this experience right here, right now by saying, and so it is.